$1 million question, folks. A lot of the people out there investing in the world, you guys, we're all striving for it. We're all striving for it. We're talking financial freedom. We're talking generational wealth. We are talking about the hopes and dreams that the next generation can live a little better than what we are living. I know as we look back through a lot of different families, you're looking back at your own family and you're saying, your great grandfather. I hope you had the opportunity to meet your great grandfather. The only one I ever met is my great grandmother. And if you think about it, how many of those do you have? So I have a grandfather, two grandfathers, two grandmothers. I only met one of their parents, which would be my great grandparents. And I remember her, I'd go mow her lawn. I would actually mow her lawn. My mom would take her shopping because she was elderly, obviously, when I was a kid. And I just remember. I remember the old crazy candy that had no name, just the weird things like those soft peanuts. I remember going to her house getting soft peanuts. Anyways, and I think about how she lived and my grandfather lived. My grandfather on my mom's side, what a great guy. What a great guy. He didn't have shoes until he was 16. So this video, I thought we'd do something a little special. I'm going to go over the charts and stuff, but I want us to keep the big picture in our mind. Because I think a lot of investors out there, as they're going through the journey, as they're going through trying to figure out what to do, look, it is stomach churning depending on what asset you're in. Are you in a treasury? Are you in a T-bill? A T-bill, you're not sweating nothing. You're still getting your roughly, 4% interest, But if you're in something like crypto, XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, any of those, it's getting a little bit hectic out there. It's getting crazy, and we need to talk a little bit about it. But I want to start with a little bit of just backstory. I'll share a little of mine. I'd love to read about your family, and I think it's important to an investor. And I know there's going to be haters out there. Just give us the charts, Mo. We just need to know what to do for the day. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait until the end of the video. Like it or not, you're going to have to wait. And my charts are fire, pure fire. And like them or hate them, they have been dictating where we have been expected to go, and we're going there. Now, I'll start with mine. And I'd love to hear about your family, how they came here, what was some of the things. A few stories. I remember one of the stories I was told by my uncle, and it was a wild one. But I'll start with my grandfather. He was 16, and I know, or 15 to 16, and my mom was telling me he didn't have shoes. They literally had, they made homemade shoes out of potato bags or something like that. He worked on a farm. He quit school, and he was really super young. He got his first pair of shoes when he was a teenager, and that was the first time he ever had shoes all his life. And I can believe it. They were dirt poor. They lived out in the country. It was that kind of family. They worked a farm. They took things to market to try to raise money. There was a whole bunch of kids. Just a really, really rough life. And there's a lot of other things that go into that. And then on my mom's side, wow, what a story. Someday I'll have to share that. My gram, she was split up from her brothers when she was young. Not in a good way. There were some bad things there. And the drama in the family that continued there. My mom told me something about that. I'm old now. I am not a young chicken. She told me some, I call it family lore, that nowadays people get in some serious trouble. We're talking major trouble. And I hear this lore about families being separated and split. And, back then we're talking early 1900s. I'm talking early 1900s, not 1970, 19, we're talking early 1900s. And kids were being split up, and one part of the family would take a kid, another family would take a kid. Now you go to prison for stuff like that. And I hear about all this, and I think, that's a rough life for my grandparents and my great-grandparents, as a matter of fact, for all of that, because it was my gram was a kid at the time. And so I realized what a wild existence. Didn't even go to school, basically quit really young. They worked the farm, no shoes from my grandfather. My other grandfather worked the railroad, was a sniper in World War II. That's my dad's side. He was he's a man's man. He was a boxer. He boxed in the Army. He played football as well. I got articles of him playing football, not for like, oh, hey, Army on TV. No, the platoons and stuff they did. It was wild. And then he went into the Battle of the Bulge all the way into Berlin. So, and they both, my other grandfather served in the Army as well. Just a wild life of that generation, and the generation before was even just rough. And then I think we have it better. My dad had it better. My dad lived out in, they didn't even have the water they got was through a pipe that my grandfather laid in a creek that came down to the house, and they lived out in the woods. And when it freeze in the winter, they had to break the ice up in there so they could have running water into a hold they built with blocks out in the yard, out in the country, just so the water would run in there, and then they go out with buckets and get buckets of water for the house. And and Dad said, "You think that was fun?" He goes, "In the summer, yeah, you loved it. You'd throw fish in there." And I said, "Fish?" He goes, "Yeah, I didn't think anything. We drank that water." He goes, "I wasn't even thinking about it when I was a kid." But some of the stories, and bring it up to where my dad goes to Vietnam, and he has a whole bunch of brothers and sisters. A better life. My dad finished his school. He has scholarships to Syracuse and Juniata University. He turns them down. He had no guidance, no one telling him what to do. He just went to work where my grandfather worked. He worked in a factory, and they built engines. He worked a CNC machine, but it was, when he had a job, we were okay. When he didn't, you're on food stamps and all this, and that was my life then. So we get to my life, and I think about where my grandfather was with no shoes. My dad had shoes. My dad finished school. My grandfather, they couldn't. It was survival. My dad told me growing up. He said, if we didn't have fish in the fridge or in the freezer, or deer meat, he goes, we didn't have food. He goes, we grew the food or shot the food or caught the food. He goes, and that's how it was done. And he goes, and so when we get a deer, he goes, we put hamburgers, just make it all in the hamburgers, and just make hamburger patties in there and fill that freezer with hamburgers. And he goes, and we just eat them. We eat them up. And that was his life. He goes, literally. And so I think about all of you investing, and we're going through a rough patch right now. It's hard. It's hard. It hurts. I'm looking at my portfolio. It's dropping. I'm not happy about it. That is a painful thing to see. And of course, when you see that, you start to lose hope. You start to lose a little bit of sight. But you got to remember where you came from. You got to remember where your family came from, how bad it was, and where we are now. We got shoes on. We got a roof over our head. We can go to a grocery store and buy more hamburgers. We don't have to not have food. And back then there was no assistance for people. You had to go out and get your food, or you didn't eat. It was a wild, wild time. So now we're moving into a period of time where the markets are getting ugly. And I'll tell you this, we'll pull up a few things here. I look at this, and this is Ethereum right now. Ethereum is breaking through every one of my selling zones. All right, so I told you right here, I'd wait for a confirmation. We got a confirmation yesterday. Today's candle, so now I got my confirmation. And I always wait for a confirmation before I do anything. And it's a tough situation. The 5 and 13 are still coming down. We can't even get back above the 5. This is just pure bears in control. Money is flowing out of ETFs. And I don't know. When you watch this and you see what I'm seeing right here, it almost looks like we're destined to head back down to the 2200 mark. You look at this, all right? Right in here, this zone. You see this zone? Nice zone, right? Solid zone, 2200 up to roughly 2900. Good zone. Up we go, down we go, up we go. Then we broke out and ran. Now we're coming back down. And if you're thinking there is no way we're going to 2200, you don't know crypto. You don't know crypto. It easily could go. So the question becomes, how do you play this? Because you could sit there and say, hey, I'm going to get out and wait till 2200. Well, we might not get there. What happened with all the money flowing, M2 increasing, around the world, liquidity, quantitative tightening ending on December 1st with the Fed? There's so many good positive things. And it's only going to take a spark to get this next rally started for crypto. But it can go lower. And it's right now, I always tell you, I'm going to look at the bottom here. Boom, big major sell off, boom, big major sell off, boom, big major sell off, boom, right here. So we're seeing these big major sell offs, and we had another one over the last 2 days. And now it looks like we're ready to come back up and tease the 13 again. So I'm not going to be surprised to see us go up, back up here and maybe hit between 3,200 and something. I'm not going to be shocked. I think we'll test 32 to 3,300 and hit the 13 EMA right here, which is at roughly 3,400. I think that'll be down to 33 something when we finally hit it. And the question becomes, you can see we have these sell-offs right here. Up to the 13 we go. Come over here, big sell-off. Up to the 13 we go. Big sell-off right here, 13. We go a little bit above. And so we continue to keep seeing that. And that's what I'm watching for. So I am under the impression over the next few days we'll hit the 13. We really need to take it. I got to tell you, and I'm making up my mind what I'm going to do. You guys, for now, I've been buying, but this is ugly. And I do want you to know we got a pretty good life going on. And so the whole meaning of the beginning of my story with some of the things my family went through is rough, man. We had good times and poor times. I got a lot of stories I could share. If you guys like them, let me know in the comments. I'll share some on my family's past, at least. And I love reading your guys's. I love reading it. I don't care how long it is. Put it in the comments. I love reading it. And some of the stories. It could be war stories, how your first family ever came here, if you're a part of the U.S. If you're not, you're part of another country, tell me how your family's been. I'm sure you have generations of stories. And that's how things used to be passed down in the old days. There was no videos. You know, it was basically stories passed down from one family generation to the next, and I'm sure some it gets it gets kind of put out there as you pass it down through 100 years. Glamorized, I don't even know what's the word. It's like a 6-inch trout ends up being a 20-inch trout by the time the story gets told 100 years later. But yeah, there's something there. So if we look, let's check out them all. XRP right now, give you a quick look. We're still above the main line. We lose 219. I really do got to consider reducing risk. I'm letting you know that. And we're still above there, so I'm okay there. But the one I'm not, man, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin absolutely failed on every level. Remember I told you if we lose 101, it's going to go down substantially. It went down. And we basically got right next to the 93 that I told you we'd hit. We got into 93-ish, and we hit it yesterday. It hit exactly where I told you. And I told you the big support will be right here. And if you lose that, I got to tell you, can't believe I got to look into this. But basically, you're going all the way down to the 83s. And so I'm not holding all the way down to there. I can tell you this right now. We confirm anything confirms below 93. I'm ghost until the 5 crosses the 13. Right now, you're just having a major sell-off. I think a lot of this started with this whole tariffs on China right here. I think you wiped out a lot of bulls. And then the bears had all the money. Because all the bears that had money started getting more money. They start leveraging in. And until you can wipe out these bears who keep shorting crypto and everybody's shorting it, you're going to continue to have some issues here. So we need something to light this thing up. And just get this rocket flowing. Once it starts, we can move, but I think it's going to be hard pressed to hit that 7,000 that Tom Lee said we'd get by the end of this year for Ethereum. Just crazy to think, oh, wow. Yeah. And so then we go to Solana. Take a look at Solana. Let's take a look at Solana. Solana down there way below. It's even below the one I'm comfortable with, 145. The last line in the sand I had was 131. Like I said, I'll make up my mind Monday because this is in my portfolio. I can't do anything with it anyways until Monday. If we keep selling off this weekend, the writing's on the wall. What do I got to do? Well, I got the last line down here. And it's sort of like I gave my supports and everything I was looking at, but eventually you got to cut and say enough's enough. I'm not going to be the 100% liquidity for all the rich people in the world. And that's the problem. And so there's going to be a lot of issues. But once that turns, it's going to be a sharp increase. And I've seen that as well. Just as quickly as it goes down, you can see this kind of movement. Look at this price right here. 129. Within a week to 2 weeks, you're up to 206. You're up 80 bucks. 80 bucks almost. And we're talking, what day is that? That's the 22nd of June. And by the 22nd of July, you went up from 120 to 200 and something. That's 1 month. In other words, you miss it, you miss 1 month, you could be missing a 60, 70% pop. And that's the danger of this. But then again, this is just 3 weeks right here. We're at 188. We're all the way down to 130 something. 50 bucks a pop off there. Like major selling, major selling. All right, folks, I'll put it this way. If you're not with me in the Discord, get in there. We have a 50% off fall 50 for a little bit longer. Get in before that expires. First link down below. It's automatic. It's automatic. You check out. If it isn't, just put in fall 50. It'll be 25 bucks for your first month. It's fantastic in there. We did a live stream yesterday. We went 3-0. Did it on public. It was fun. We have our crypto course coming out, and it should be the next. It'll be out before Thanksgiving. I can tell you that. So that's coming up real soon. Our goal is to get out even before then. Join the wait list. You'll get a special code. We're going to be sending out the code pretty soon. And the last one, Moomoo. Take advantage of Moomoo. Third link down below. You can get up to. You guys can see what you get right here. All of this. Take advantage of this, man. It's incredible. Especially the 8.1% APY. You got to use my link, though. Third link down below. You use that link and sign up. You can get some of that NVIDIA stock plus the 8.1%, which is fantastic. All right, family. That is it. That is the update. I appreciate you stopping by. I will see you in the Discord. Be sure to like and subscribe. Now let's get out there and make some money.